lovely introduction. How exciting it is to be able to at least connect with all of you as we have been doing for several months now for what feels like forever, right? I loved, Stephen, the connection you made to an onion. I hadn't thought about that, but that is true. As we continued to peel the layers, we were just crying and crying about all the things that were happening. But while we were doing that silently, we've continued to lead as leaders and educators do. So gracias for asking me, Stephen. You're correct. Although I haven't known you professionally for as long as you've known my husband, Emilio, I think when you're connected, you're connected. So I loved the title Conexiones. It excited me when I thought about words I wanted to share with you and how important connections are. Never, ever underestimate that power of connection. I just saw Marla Shepherd say, hey, Martha. Yes, Marla, hello. From far away as well. It's great to reconnect with friends and hopefully be able to meet some new friends. In a minute, I'm going to ask to share the screen so I can go over a few thoughts that I put together. But yes, I am Martha Salazar Zamora, the proud superintendent of the Tomball Independent School District. And one thing I'm not ever shy about talking about is that Tomball is the #1 highest academic rated school district in the greater Houston area. And that is something I'm extremely proud of because the recognition we just received from children at risk being rated the #1 district was not just because of the work that we do, but because of the work we do with children of color to ensure that Hispanic, Latino students, Latinas, and African-American students also do well academically. And so that's always been a big focus of mine. I will be fully transparent. I'm in my 88-year-old mother's home in Keensville. She does not have internet connection. I was having some difficulty with the hotspot, so that's the reality sometimes, right? And that's the reality that our children live with as well at times. So I'm hoping that we get through the next few minutes together with no challenges. But again, that's what we've been living with since COVID. So the title is Conexiones, and I don't know, do I have the opportunity for shared screen? I think so. Here we go. All righty. So let me. I want it. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. Can everybody see the screen? Thumbs up. Are we good? Okay. Thank you, Edgar. You're the first person I saw. All right. Again, I've told you who I am. Conexión, connections. What does that really mean? It's a relationship in which a person or a thing or an idea is linked or associated with something else. One of the things I think I'm proudest of in our culture is that we make connections at all times in all ways. As you heard, I certainly won't go into my bio, but I am the past president of Talas. Not only am I the past president of Talas, but I'm a founding member. Why did we have to be founding members and go out and find people that were interested in this in Texas? And think about what I'm saying. Less than 10 years ago in Texas, the largest growing student population, of course, not just in Texas, but in several parts of the nation, is our Latino population. And yet we didn't have an ALAS Texas affiliate. Now, there was one many, many years ago, and unfortunately it fell by the wayside. And one of the things that I truly believed in was doing this to ensure that we can support all students, but in particular, students of color. And so as a founding member, I was not the first president, I was actually the third, but I continue to be a huge supporter of Talas and of course ALAS. And so I'm excited again to connect with all of you this morning. So my story, I'll be brief on this because I am 55 years old and we don't have enough time for my whole story. Of course, my educational background, but I will tell you the one I'm proudest of is my doctoral degree from Texas A&M University. Not a lot of we're getting doctoral degrees, okay? And so very, very few people who looked like me. I was a superintendent over 21 years ago in Texas, so let that sink in, 21 years ago. What disappoints me is I left the superintendency when I moved to the greater Houston area. My husband at the time was a cardiothoracic specialist, and I moved to Houston and I didn't have a support network. I didn't have the familia, I didn't have the people that could help me raise my children. So I'm speaking to the women. I can't see everyone on the Zoom call, But one thing I will tell you is the journey, when it's the right time for you, not when everybody around you says it is, not when everybody else thinks, you will know. I wanted to make sure well into my 50s, which I am right now, that I could reflect back and say, you know what, Martha, you were a great leader, but you were an even better mother, because that's my number one title, right? And so now I can reflect on that. You see here my husband, Emilio. We've been married for 33 years. I'm a Glammy. I'm holding my only grandchild, Adia Rose, who unfortunately lives halfway across the world in Italy with my daughter, Milan. Yes, I named her Milan, and she lives in Milan. Theo, when they were at the University of Texas. And my youngest daughter, Matisse, who I'm so proud to say is hopefully following in my footsteps to some degree. She is a special education major, and she's planning on going to get an advanced master's degree in London, hopefully next in 2022. So my education is really all about, I was not a first generation graduate, so I will tell you, my father had a law degree, my mother was a nurse, but I married a first generation, and I know the challenges, and I always ensure that our staff, our community support children that don't have the families, don't have the experiences of higher education, because I think that's so very important that we always keep that in mind. My journey, my personal challenge. So on a quick note, never underestimate the power of any child, because if somebody had done that to me, I would not be talking to you for the next few minutes. What do I mean by that? I was born with a severe, profound sensory neural hearing loss. That was not corrected. My impairment was not corrected until I was 17. So I had a Dynavox back when we didn't have the miracle ear. So it was like right away, deaf child. And growing up, I had amazing speech therapists. So my love for special education grew very quickly. But my understanding of the passion of a parental advocate also grew very quickly. I was born before IDEA 94-142. But I saw my mother every stretch of the way, my father as well, but my mother advocate and say, no, she is smart, she can do this. Whereas the district at the time wanted to put me in a special classroom, which may have ended up fine, but statistically, probably not. I was in the classroom that my mother ensured and insisted that I be in every step of the way. So I was in special education, and I was in gifted and talented. Doesn't happen very often, but it does if we do the right thing. I think we see that more now because laws protect children. But that story doesn't end there. The journey doesn't end there. The beauty of the story is that same child, that same young Hispanic female ended up becoming their first female superintendent over 21 years ago. So you have to believe in each and every child, because if we put boxes, if we put labels, if we limit the potential of children, then they may not one day be a keynote speaker on a Saturday morning to an amazing group of leaders. So let's always remember the potential. And then I just end this slide with my family, because it has to be your focus. And why do I say that? And I really mean men and women. Over the course of my career, I've been in education for 34 years. It has been the most amazing part, next to my family and my faith, the most amazing part of my life. I don't plan to retire. As a matter of fact, I was heavily pursued for a district, a very, very large district nearby. But I believe I'm where I need to be right now. I'm in the right size district where I'm making tremendous impact, and I'm happy. So remember, happiness matters. Family matters. I know far too many educators that are on second and even third marriages, and marriages fall apart for different reasons. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but make sure that you keep your family and your marriage a focus, because that's your support group. The people you see on this page are the people who have seen me through very great times and very challenging times in my profession. So what connects us? What does connect us? Services are very much how we connect. That's part of it, right? And also tolerance and understanding of others with opposing views are ways to help connect us as well. Towards the very end of the slide, I make mention of what is happening as a sitting superintendent and not knowing everybody I'm speaking to, but I assume and I believe many of you thrive to continue to grow in your profession. And if you're at the campus level, I wish you the best moving forward to a campus, rather a district position, and then ultimately the superintendency if that's your goal. or return to the superintendency. As I mentioned, I was superintendent over 20 years ago in Keensville, Texas. My husband comes to the house one day and said he had his dream job. But the problem is my dream job was in my hometown of Keensville. His dream job was in Houston. And if you don't know the geographics of Texas, it's about a 4-hour drive. It would have been a difficult commute and definitely wouldn't have helped with the family connection that I just talked about. So I moved, and like I said earlier, made that decision to leave the superintendency to support my 2 daughters and to ensure that they had the most support they can. Now, I'm not saying that you can't have it all. I'm not saying that to young women. Pull yourself to think doing the superintendency, which is a 24/7 job, if you do it right, that it doesn't come at a cost. So you have to find that life balance. You have to find what works for you and what doesn't work for you. So why should we stay connected? Why is this word so important in English and Spanish? What does it really mean? Well, staying connected means it can lead to new business opportunities. And why do I use the word business? You will hear me make a reference to the business world, maybe even more than education, because let's not forget that we are in a business of business, right? Education is a business. In many cases, we're the largest employers. We have perhaps the largest budget or a brand. We have to recruit, we have to retain. So in many ways, when you look at my team, Team Tomball, those of you, and of course it's a little challenging, right? This is a COVID picture, so you only see this much of everybody. But nevertheless, you would see some very familiar faces from HISD, from Round Rock ISD, where I had been the deputy superintendent, from Spring ISD, where I had been an assistant superintendent. I've been very fortunate to hold various titles, and that's really all they are in education. They're really just titles. It's the work that you do, and I'll talk about that, the work you do every day that allows you, having those connections, staying connected to people can also result in new referrals, new opportunities, new doors that open. Recently, I connected with Dallas Dance, who had been a superintendent in Houston and moved on and now is doing great work in social emotional learning, which we all know has been important before, but now it's even more important. I remind my staff, we used to do all this work before COVID. Now we still do all this work and we do more, right? On top of that, all the things that you know. In Texas, not knowing all the states you represent, but in Texas, we've been open since August. So it has been business somewhat as usual, but we also have Tomball Virtual School for those families who weren't feeling comfortable sending their children, and the face-to-face with all the precautions and necessary COVID protections and contact tracing and all the things that we've all learned to become very familiar terms in our educational vernacular, words I don't want to hear next year, right? And what else? Staying connected can open doors for you. I have actually had opportunities happen because of people I know. For example, Stephen, I know of Stephen's work in Houston. I know of the great work he's done in different areas. And so that's how you stay connected. We have mutual friends. Take the time to stay connected as friends and as professional colleagues. It will serve you well. You can learn from others and at some point perhaps help them, or they may help you. They may advise you on best practices to say, this is how we opened up safely in Texas. I was fortunately never had to close a single school or a single classroom. I did have to quarantine the cheer team, the football team, and of course it was at very inopportune time. Remember, I'm from Texas. Football is everything. We didn't have cheerleaders at homecoming. We didn't have, but that's okay because safety first. But we can advise people not just COVID related, but educationally related as well. And I think the last one is probably the most important. As I continue to grow older in this great profession that we're also fortunate to have selected, and I say that because it is a selection. You get into education, perhaps your heart leads you there, your family, but you stay there hopefully because you realize the importance and the beauty of what we do each and every day. It can lead to lasting friendships and, of course, business alliances. I was able to sell my scoreboard at our new stadium, a almost $60 million project out of a $300 million bond. And through a business friendship, able to sell that scoreboard for over $1.5 million. So pretty excited about that. Again, this is Texas, remember? Football unfortunately reigns. But I'm a superintendent that makes sure everybody understands academics has to come first. So therefore, I'm proud of what our kids do academic and professional connections, because I think they're important that you use them as maybe assisting you with the job search. I just was able to hire a director of multilingual yesterday, who was also the president of TCWC, the Texas Council of Women School Executives. So I know Dr. Brenda Arteaga, not just from Houston, but also from her work with the organization. So stay involved, stay connected. Organizations that you select, I know take time, but if you're in, be all in, be a part of it, strive to be an officer, make a difference. They will help you achieve career goals, and you also learn more about your field or other fields that you might want to work in. Of course, in education, you might be a teacher, a diag, a speech pathologist. I'm saying that because that was my career trajectory. I started in the classroom. I was a special ed diag. Of course, you know my story with special education, being a child in special ed. I became a director of special ed, but I noticed we were over-identifying Hispanic and African-American kids. So I became a director of a campus, or rather a campus principal, fighting for the advocacy of students with special needs, and then a director, of course, of bilingual ed. Then I got my doctorate and became an assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction. I will tell you one fault, and I don't know if it's a fault necessarily, but in every job I had, I continuously asked, well, this is good, but what could we do more? What could we do differently? I learned to stop asking that question, because every time I did that, I ended up with a new job, which was also a learning opportunity. Every job helps you learn and be prepared, better prepared for the next one. So networking can be a good way to hear about job opportunities and get in with the company, a district that you would like to work with. For example, some of the connections you have today with your organization, with ALAS, and of course, I would be remiss if I didn't recognize our very own Texas ALAS. I want to remind you, and I know you've heard this before, but it is so true, because I do watch people. I always tell people I'm watching even when you don't think I'm watching. I'm watching, I look, I listen, I read the emails of praise or of concern, perhaps from the community. So you interview for your next job every day you do your job. So do your job well. Everything you do throughout the day, the week, the month, and even the year can help or hurt you when you apply for the next job. If you're within the district, the accolades, the great praise can help you, right? But if you've had areas of concern where you weren't a team builder, or you didn't stay connected, or you didn't do what was right for kids, that can certainly hurt you. You really want to stay connected, especially when you're applying for a promotion, as I've mentioned, within your organization. What about moving up the career ladder? That's not for everybody. I know friends, I have family that have been career teachers, and I've encouraged them to become master teachers, right? And it's not for the compensation, it's for the additional professional learning. Or I've had friends and family that have been career principals or career district office, and we do actually have 3 superintendents in my family. And so what I will say is, moving up the career ladder, again, is your choice, your time. As a male head of household, can you move your family? Can you move your wife? Can you move your kids? I will say, never underestimate the years in which you move your children, what age, and I would even say male or female. I found out moving a teenage daughter clear across Texas wasn't maybe the best thing. There were some challenges that came with that. She certainly overcame them, but you have to think about what's best for you, your career, and ultimately that family. Going back to that slide of keeping family a true focus. Know what you want. That's important. So again, don't listen to the voices of do this, do that. Know what you want. Have that plan in mind, the trajectory, the goals of where you want to be. So if you don't, I always tell people, if you get in a car with a full tank of gas and you just drive, you will go somewhere, right? Have a blueprint, have a plan, communicate your ambitions. I'm a firm believer in putting it out there in the universe, telling people what you want, and then striving forward to achieve that. Build strong relationships and always go beyond your job description. Put yourself in leadership positions because people watch. Again, every day you do a good job, you're interviewing for that next job. Track your accomplishments. I will tell you, as you get older, you almost forget because you're doing so many things and you're involved in so many things. And at some point, you need to be able to share that. Reflect the company or the district goals and dress the part. What do I mean by that? Well, at certain times, it's jeans and spirit shirt day, but at certain times, it's not. So keep that in mind and remember that. Pursuing the next position, knowing when the right time is. I've said that a lot, but get specific about what is not working. Like, okay, what is it that you need to do or not do? Identify what you like about your current role, keep doing that, and then decide what you need to do next. Consider your core values. Like, what are the core values? What makes you who you are? What makes you the leader that you are? Assess your strengths and any skill gaps you have and be honest with yourself. That's where your conexiones, your connections are important. Ask people. If it's a true friend, they'll tell you you're great at that. You might want to work a little bit more in this area. Develop and execute the plan I've been talking about. Part of that is a professional resume. Remember, that's the first impression that people get of you. What does your resume say about you? What do others say about you, right? Keep that in mind as well. We all have a story. I've shared just a little bit of my story with you about being that deaf student. And by the way, at the age of 17, I had an ossicular chain implant after years of therapy. And other than having a very fast rate of speech, which has nothing to do with my disability, I will tell you that I don't have deaf speech because it was not nerve damage. It was sensory neural. I was born without the 3 ossicular chain bones. Know who you are, know your story, and embrace it. And never be afraid to tell it. As I come to the end of our time together, I want to leave a little bit. Mentoring is mentioned. Have a mentor. Go to that mentor, someone you can relate to when things are good or when things are bad. That person can help open the doors for you, and never, never give up on you. Mentors are there for you for hopefully a lifetime and a career. And be a mentor. You're in a position, hopefully, where you can do that for others. So pay it forward and do that for others, not just people of color, but definitely include people of color. One of the things, dissertation, more than half of those are Latinos. How many baby doctors have been born? I love to say, keep that in mind. Hold each other accountable as far as your mentor and mentee. And I mean, as far as staying connected, because we get so busy, it's hard to do that, but hold yourself accountable and consider a professional development plan. Stephen started talking about challenges. And wow, I mean, there have been an immense amount of challenges, regardless of where you live in the state, in the nation. All states have all countries. You know, my daughter in Italy, I was every day shuddering as I heard the news of the mounting death toll, and you can only imagine, because of course we were getting news from Europe first before when COVID first hit. COVID-19 is just one of many challenges we will continue to have throughout our career. The political landscape right now is challenging as well. When the horrible death of George Floyd took place, superintendents had to make the decision of what to write. Do I write a letter? What do I put in it? It's important to know your community, know the context, and know what you need to do and when to use your voice. You do have to use your voice in any and all positions. Right now in Texas, we are seeing a lot with critical race theory. I think that's going to be something that we are going to hear much more from if you're not already. And of course, diversity, equity, and inclusion needs to continue to be an important focus, with everybody understanding what does it mean when we talk about our committee and our staff members that focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion, those 3 words, and not having time, but again, knowing how important they are, that you understand them as a leader and that you can explain them as leaders. I don't know about other parts of the state, but weather in Texas has been absolutely crazy, whether we're drowning in water or, yes, this was a Texas picture of what we call snowvid recently. So either way, we know we have many, many challenges, but together we can continue to meet all of them. So we will rise above all of them. Remember to be the leader that you want to be thought of as. So have that reflection time about, how do I project myself? How do others see me? How do I want to be seen? The challenges this year, as you peel the layers away, going to back to what Stephen said, they've been immense. Educators have never had to do so very much. And at every critical turn, whether it was a governor making a decision, a president making a decision, we've had to sit there and determine and redetermine, what does our local education agency say about something? What does the CDC say about something? I am so proud to stand amongst the ranks of all of you as educators in whatever capacity you serve right now, because you made a difference in the lives of children. Are we going to see COVID slide? Academic learning loss? Yes, we will. We absolutely will. what will we do now with ESSER dollars as we continue to fight for them? And as we get them, what will we do to make a difference to ensure that our students are better than they were even before COVID? I am a firm believer, and trust me, anyone who has heard me speak before knows I will stay in contact to any degree you would like. My name again is Martha Salazar Zamora. I am the proud superintendent of the Tomball Independent School District, where we believe we are not just a district, but a destination. Never be a stranger if you're in the Texas area, and with the beauty of Zoom and social media, we can stay connected far more easier. This is my personal cell phone number. You can follow me on Twitter. I will share, I probably overtweet. I love to brag about our district. We are right now in pursuit of a state championship in baseball, and of course, continuing to stay the #1 rated school district in the greater Houston area. You also have my connection there as well. If you'd like to send me an email or anything else, you can also follow Tomball ISD. And so I'm going to open it up, I believe, to questions. If I'm not out of time, Stephen, you can let me know about next best steps.
No, we have about 15 minutes, so we're definitely open to if anyone in the crowd has questions, and we're excited about you getting the opportunity to share some of your knowledge and just get some dialogue with the group. So if someone has a question, please no sea tímido, go ahead and ask your question, and I know Martha will be willing to answer it.
Absolutely.
Hey, Martha, this is Eddie Soto, and I'm calling from Albuquerque. But I follow TASA very closely, and I just want to get your perspective on networking with state level organizations and balancing out your professional responsibilities with your district, balancing out the commitments to statewide organizations and even national organizations, and how do you navigate all of that and determine, make some determinations as to which are the critical ones and a young upcoming administrator or superintendent should join. I mean, to keep a pulse on it. It's really a balancing act, very, very strategic one.
Right, and that actually kind of dovetails into the message that Marla just put as well. So Eduardo, nice to meet you via Zoom, first of all. And that's a great question. I didn't want to spend limited time talking about all the things I'm connected with and all the things I do, but I think it's important now that you've asked the question. TASA, for those of you that are not connected to Texas Association of School Administrators is the leading premier association in TASA. I was a member of TASA years ago as a first-time superintendent, and I remember being in awe of the people on the stage, the people that ran this amazing conference. And I think at the time I didn't realize I too could be a part of it, probably because, again, nobody looked like me. 20 plus years ago, TASA has still not had a Hispanic female president. I'm hoping to change that one day. I'll just put it out there because I believe it's saying what you want to have happen, right? But I was quickly selected from when I came to the Houston area, I was selected to serve the greater Houston area. And that may not mean a lot if you don't know the area, but to serve when you have Houston and Alief and Aldine and Fort Bend, very large districts with over 100,000, 200,000. I'm sitting at 20,000 plus. I am the representative of the Houston area for TASA. And I'm also on the executive committee, but also serve on the mentoring membership committee as well. Why is that important? Because we have to have a seat at the table, but it's not only getting to the table, it's eating when you're there, right? So you have to have a voice and talk about things that are important. We now have, Eduardo, a TASA DEI committee with Latanya Goffney and Gonzalo Salazar. I will add that in the year to come, the president of TASA is Gonzalo Salazar, not a relation, but I'll claim him. And the vice president is Latanya Goffney, an African-American, and she is my sister. And so what I love about that is now TASA is recognizing, and I mean no ill will to anyone in the past, but it cannot be an organization of all white men. At this point, I will tell you, I had people tell me I wouldn't be the next president, or not president, the next superintendent of my district. And let me tell you why I was told that. My district, in over a 100-year history, today, Eduardo, has never had a minority school board member, ever. Not an Asian, not an African American, not a Hispanic. I think history will change in time. And that's not, I want to also preface that with, that is not because the community doesn't elect them. We've not had somebody run until this very last election. And so you will never win the race you don't start. And so people need to feel comfortable to run, and then people will support them. I do think having a minority school board, or rather superintendent for the last 4 years in the district, I've been in the district for now almost 8 years, has made a difference. I was the first minority on cabinet in Tomball, Texas, ISD, where within the last 15, maybe 12 years, KKK was still in Tomball. And so when you think, kind of let that sink in what I'm saying, you have to have a seat at the table, you have to have a voice and speak appropriately about what's important. So going back to your question about TASA, having a seat at the table, I talked to Kevin Brown, I'm getting all the names wrong, Kevin Brown, who is the executive director, and said, Kevin, this organization will never change the image if you don't change. It's time. If not us, then who? And so he started with some opposition, because he has privately told me some members have come up to him and said, why are you leading this? Why are you pushing this? But he recognizes, again, the fastest growing student population and the fact that all means all, not just us as see people like us in leadership positions. So I'm a big part of TASA, of course, past president of TALAS. I'm vice president of Texas Council of Women's School Executives. I pick my organizations very strategically and very carefully because they take a lot of time. And you can tell if I'm in, I'm all in. But the one other thing I want to leave this question with, so we can go to another one, is I was so proud because our state of Texas has well over 1,000, I believe, 500 school districts, and they have one representative for the state of Texas at AASA, and she's speaking to you right now. So I was selected by the state of Texas to be the AASA, and first, of course, Latina to represent the state of Texas at a national level. So Eduardo, I think it's important, but don't just get there. Do what's right when you're there. And remember, all means all, right? Hispanic, Asian, Latino, Caucasian, be the voice for all, but definitely make sure underrepresented are now represented at the table, heard, and making a difference. Great question. You're on mute, Eduardo.
It's very clear that you're very strategic about which organizations you choose to participate in. You can't do them all, obviously.
You can't. You know, I used to
leverage the greatest impact is where you tend to go to. Plus, I was in Houston when the snow fell, by the way.
Oh, no.
Our son lives in Cypress.
Okay, well, that's right by Tomball. Yep. Yeah, we got a lot of snow for sure. And yes, it's hard when you love these organizations. I had been very active with academic organizations over the years. And I'm an academic superintendent. I didn't go into that whole lens, but that's important. If you don't have a strength in all the core areas, that's okay. But as you continue to climb, you need to get stronger at what you're not strong in. Don't shy away from finance. Don't shy away from academics. Don't shy away from the importance of communications or human talent or whatever operations. But truly, yeah, you have to balance. That goes back to my slide about family balance, and you can't do it all if you're going to do the job well.
Thank you.
Great question. Thank you, Eduardo.
Dr. Salazar Zamora, a question from the audience. Are there any specific things that you do to achieve work-life balance?
Yes, I saw that question from Marla. That's a great question. I think that's changed over time. I think as I've matured and grown, I recognize that you do have to find that time to take care of your own health. As a superintendent, you're required to have an annual physical, which I didn't always do before, I'll be totally honest. But you do have to disconnect, as they say, give your body time to recharge and do the things you love to do. I enjoyed spending time. My husband and I are now empty nesters. He just surprised me somewhat. I think he was probed a little, but nevertheless, we went away for 4 days to San Miguel de Allende, and it was my birthday and Mother's Day. But it was the first time we had been out together on a trip without our children or friends or family in more years than I cared to admit. And it was the first time I had taken time off from my district since the March before, since COVID, because I felt like I had to be there and I was always worried about what was going to happen next. But sometimes you have to trust the team you have, because if you're a leader who can't have people lead in your absence, then you're really not leading. I have to remind myself of that. But do things that make you happy. We enjoy, of course, cooking a meal together, going out. We used to enjoy the movies and things like that. Any opportunity that I get to spend time with both my children. Of course, I'm always wanting to fly back to Milan, Italy to be with my granddaughter and daughter, or have them come see us. And then my youngest will be moving to Europe, as I mentioned, upon graduation. And so for me, it's about family. That's how I recharge my battery. That's how I connect. A massage here and there doesn't hurt either.
Thank you for answering that. We also
Any other questions? I'm not checking.
no
Go ahead.
worries. Who was a key mentor in your career?
Oh, wow. That's a great question. I'm actually going to go back to the first superintendent that made me that gave me my first opportunity to lead, Mr. Nathan Lee. Didn't have his doctorate, although I will say he could have earned it 10 times over. But I learned a lot of things about great leadership. And let me tell you, I've been fortunate to have amazing leaders that I've worked with. I've worked with some of the best, I believe. Dr. Abe Saavedra, Dr. Michael Hinojosa, Dr. Terry Greer, to name a few. But there was something about the influential formative years in my leadership that Mr. Lee always had fairness, kindness, I believe equity. I believe he was well before his time in that area. And above all, I knew he cared. He had a passion for all of the children in the district.
Thank you for honoring him. And one final question that I see in the chat here. Latina superintendents are still very few. How should women who aspire to the superintendency start their leadership journey?
Okay, so Cesar, that's a great question. And I mentioned I was a young Latina superintendent when I didn't even realize what a trailblazer was at the time, truthfully. Let me tell you that story, because that job it just happened, but not in the way that it should have. My superintendent, a white male, wonderful man, Charles Greenawalt, left the district and he said, I'm leaving and you're going to be the next superintendent, but you're not going to stay here forever. And I know, remember I said it was my hometown. He said, I know you think you are, but you're not, and it'll be okay. And I looked at him and I said, I'm not going to be the next superintendent. I don't want to be a superintendent. I don't want that job. Well, the board president came to me and said, we'd like to make you the next superintendent. This was, if you can imagine, no interview, just the job was offered. And I said, oh, I don't want the job. No, I'll be the interim, but I don't want the job. Do your search. So they strategically, I know now, waited for a couple of months and then came back and said, Dr. Salazar Zamora, you're doing the job here. They offered more money and I was like, it's not about the money. I don't want to do the job. A third time, about 2 months later, by this time I had almost, I've been doing the interim job for forever. My husband actually, and he's sitting across the table from me right now. I don't know if he remembers, but he looked at me 20 plus years ago and said, what are you afraid of? Like, this isn't like you. What are you afraid of? And I remember saying, I'm afraid I can't do it all right. Now, no offense to the men on this Zoom, but a male would have taken that job in a New York minute and figured it out. But in my mind, young, female, didn't look like any of the superintendents before me. I thought, I have to get it right. I have to do everything right. And he said, there's no fear in taking the job. And if it doesn't work, give it back. You can do the job. So I want to tell female Latina superintendents, apply for those jobs, get the interviews. And if you get it, give me a call. I'm here for you. But there are so many people out there that can support you. Don't let your own fear really hold you back. And I see Connie put a big heart. I love that, Connie. Because it's true. I wish somebody had told me that years ago. I don't know where I would be. I'm super, super proud of where I am and happy. But we close our own doors before we even let them open. And it's our loved ones sometimes who say, here, you can do it. You can do it. I turned down an opportunity in one large urban school district recently and was highly pursued for another one. And I was glad to keep that door closed, not because I couldn't do the job, but because I didn't want to. You do the job you want to do. I love the district I'm in. I know my leaders. I know my community. I don't have crazy politics, perhaps. They embrace what we're doing and we're making a difference. And I believe it's important that you take the jobs that you want to be in. And so for Latina superintendents, I would say, don't be afraid, be bold, keep your heels high and your goals higher. Shoes, I mean. Any other questions? Okay, I see one from Marta, maybe Marta. How does being Latina, how has that impacted your journey, positively or negatively? I think it's been both. I think it gives you a lens that's very different. I'm not going to sit here and lie and tell you there hasn't been some negative impact at times. I think anyone that's a minority group will tell you, depending on your age, most certainly that there can be some hindrances. But there have been many positivities, and one of the things I will tell you is the title of your event today, Conexiones, the connections that you make, the people that believe in you, because you do the good work that you do every day. Truly, those next opportunities come. So never let a negative experience, a negative opportunity, a negative something keep you from what you want to do. I'm one who likes to live in the positive. If you haven't already noticed in the last few minutes, get there and stay there, because negativity will get you nowhere fast, but positivity can get you everywhere even faster. Trying to see, I don't see any more questions, and we probably are out of time. I certainly want to thank Stephen and you, Edgar, everyone that's been a part of allowing me to speak very freely and candidly with you the last few minutes. It is my pleasure to connect with educators throughout the state. You've got my contact information from the last slide. Stay connected. I wish your organization the very, very best. And I hope that we all have a calmer, better, safer coming school year.